G'day guys, NB Darkman here. For all of human history, people have had a desire to collect things. In ancient Egypt, the Ptolemaic dynasty collected books from all over the world, and during the Renaissance, the wealthy Medici family in Florence maintained their impressive art collection. And here in 2025, this desire to collect has not gone away. From vintage comic books to rare sneakers, there's something satisfying about owning a piece of history or a one-of-a-kind item. Some collectibles are meant to be displayed, protected, even passed down for generations. But one aspect that pretty much all collectibles have in common is that they are permanent. Most collectibles, if left sitting on a shelf today, will still be there tomorrow, and the day after that. After all, why wouldn't they be? But what if I told you that there are collectibles that aren't designed to sit on a shelf? They are designed to be eaten. That's right, every now and then, a very sought-after collectible hits the market that is not meant to be permanent, because they are food. They are both collectible, but transient. They have value, but won't last forever. The very existence of these collectibles cannot be taken for granted. If not properly stored, they may melt or spoil. In this video, we're going to be exploring 3 of these items. These items are of immense value to certain collectors, but even tracking down these items can be extremely tough. And that's not to mention the extreme difficulty of trying to transport or store them. So, if you love weird and wonderful collectibles, it's time to relax, get comfortable, and maybe even grab your favourite snack, because today, we're about to explore some of the rarest items you can collect and eat. Item number 1. Joji honey. If you've watched any of the previous videos on my channel, you'll know I'm a big fan of the YouTuber turned musician Joji, formerly known as Filthy Frank. After becoming one of the most iconic creators on the YouTube platform, Joji retired from making YouTube videos in late 2017 and successfully transitioned to his career as a musician, producing iconic hits such as Slow Dancing in the Dark and Glimpse of Us. Now, throughout his career, not only as a musician, but also as a YouTuber, Joji has produced and sold a wide variety of merchandise to his fans over the years. From t-shirts, to vinyls and CDs containing all his music releases, to VHS tapes even, Joji has been no stranger not only to releasing merchandise, but also pushing the boundaries of what artists typically produce as merchandise. In 2020, Joji would release his album Nectar. Regarded by many to be his magnum opus, this album not only contained some great tracks, such as Sanctuary, Run, and TikTok, but also contained a great deal of symbolism too. 2 symbols in particular would appear frequently in the album and its promotional material: spoons and honey. Let's take a look. In the music video for Sanctuary, we see Joji on a spaceship, eating cereal with a spoon. Later in the video, one of the other pilots of the spaceship uses that same spoon to pluck out his own eye and becomes the villain of the story. Shortly after Sanctuary was released, the song Gimme Love would be released, the album artwork of which would feature a spoon dripping with honey. On his Instagram, Joji would post a photo promoting the release of the Nectar album, featuring himself scooping up hundreds of CD copies of Nectar with 2 giant spoons. Then, when Nectar released, many of the visualizer videos for songs without actual music videos featured honey in them. And finally, the album itself is called, well, Nectar, which is an obvious connection to the honey symbol. So it's safe to say both spoons and honey were a key motif in this album. So when it came time to release merchandise for the album, it should be no surprise that both of these items were well represented. On Joji's online merch store, fans noticed that Joji was selling a spoon containing the name of one of his songs, Gimme Love, etched into it. And from there, it didn't take long for the existence of this spoon to turn into a massive meme. It became common to comment Joji spoon over all Joji-related subreddits. Fellow YouTuber and former collaborator with Joji, Max Mofo, was particularly fond of promoting this meme. And even his podcast, Cold Ones, would joke about having Joji spoon on their show. The meme finally came full circle when Joji himself reposted on Twitter one of the memes that had been posted to Reddit. Now, these days, Joji spoons are no longer for sale on Joji's website and are quite a collectible item. There's currently none for sale on eBay. I was quite lucky to get a Joji spoon myself a little while back for a reasonable price. But now, it's time to talk about Joji honey. In case you hadn't guessed by now, yes, Joji also released his own honey too, around the same time he released the Joji spoon. This honey, called Joji's Nectar Honey, was placed for sale on the 88 Rising website. A video was uploaded to YouTube to promote the honey. It was produced by a company called Eli's Bee Company and carried the slogan, "Fresh from the Hive." As far as the product was concerned, it was just regular, decent honey. However, its connection to the Joji name obviously gave it great collector's value. People still do place them on eBay for sale every now and then, and right now, there's one for auction on eBay for about $30. Now, a bit of a personal story. Once I'd purchased my Joji spoon, I of course wanted to have some Joji honey in my collection too. However, I had missed out on buying some back when it was on sale. So a few years ago, I took to eBay and found one for sale. I live in Australia and the honey was in the US. No problem, I thought, as the eBay International Shipping Service allows US-based sellers to ship their items to a distribution centre who take care of the international shipping. So I purchased the honey and waited eagerly. However, one day I was unexpectedly met with this email telling me that the item could not be shipped internationally and I was being refunded. Australia has pretty strict biosecurity laws, but honey was apparently usually allowed. If I had to guess, it may have just been because the honey was technically expired, and trying to explain to border security that I was just collecting the item would have been a pretty hard sell. So unfortunately, I doubt I'll ever get my hands on some Joji honey. And this perfectly highlights some of the issues with collecting edible items. Sometimes, even just trying to post them around proves problematic. So, if like me, you never got your hands on a Joji pot of honey, I'd recommend this video by Jared is Pink, who did quite an in-depth review of the honey. Now, before we move on from Joji honey, there's two more extremely obscure food-related Joji items we have to talk about. Firstly, during this same time period, Joji actually did a collaboration with Johnnie Walker, yes, the whiskey company. He partnered with them to release a special box set called the Honeycomb Highball Cocktail Courier Kit. The purpose of this set was to make a special cocktail that Joji had developed alongside Johnnie Walker. In this set, you'd receive one Joji Nectar Honey, one bottle of Johnnie Walker Black Label, and a special Joji cocktail spoon that was only available in this set. That's right, Joji released a second, even rarer spoon. This set appears to be extremely rare, with the spoon in particular being in high demand, and I've actually never seen one listed for sale on eBay. If you'd like to see a review of the cocktail, YouTuber Randy the Savage purchased the kit and made the drink, so I'd strongly suggest checking his video out. Now, if you thought the cocktail set was rare, well, that doesn't even come close to what we're about to talk about. Remember how the Sanctuary music video featured that bowl of cereal? Well, Joji actually released his own cereal. However, there's a good chance you've never heard about this. That's because this cereal was never actually offered for sale. It was only available as part of a sweepstakes competition to promote Joji's single Daylight and was only available to US residents. Winners received a regular Joji spoon and one box of Joji Cereal Treat, a cereal that was, very unsurprisingly, honey flavoured. Much like the cocktail set, I've never seen one of these listed for sale on eBay, but thankfully there's a video review of this cereal too by Randy the Savage, again? Wow, this guy's got one hell of a Joji collection, but definitely check his video out. Anyway, I think we've covered Joji food merch just about as much as we can, so let's move on to our next edible collectible. Item number 2. Breakbot Chocolate Record. The year is 2013. The most iconic electronic music duo in existence, Daft Punk, have just released their much-anticipated album, Random Access Memories. Unlike many of their previous albums, which had a strong electronic sound, Daft Punk instead opted for a different path with this album. They would make an album that heavily drew influence from the disco sound from the 60s and 70s, even bringing on board some artists from that time period, such as Giorgio Moroder.
I know the synthesizer.
The album was a massive success, winning pretty much every category it was nominated for at the Grammys and producing the song of the summer, Get Lucky. The unique sound of the new album was so groundbreaking that it was being labelled as belonging to a relatively new music genre, almost entirely of its own, new disco. However, Random Access Memories was not the first album to be released in this genre. Many fans of Random Access Memories, while searching for music that was similar in style to the album, quickly discovered an artist known as Breakbot. Breakbot had been active for years, but a year earlier, in 2012, he had released an album called By Your Side, which was incredibly similar to the sound of Random Access Memories. The lead single from the album, called Baby I'm Yours, was met with immediate success. However, this success paled in comparison to the attention the song would receive when it would be made into a meme 6 years later. And if you haven't worked out which song I'm talking about yet, well, there's a good chance you've seen this.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Yes, the song we're talking about is the song from the Ladies and Gentlemen, We Got Him meme. Anyway, let's talk about the album this song is from. When By Your Side was released in 2012, it was released on 4 different formats: digitally, CD, vinyl, and chocolate. Now, wait, what? Yes. Breakbot released his album on chocolate. Breakbot had partnered with Galenksa Chocolatiers to produce a very limited run of chocolate vinyl records. These records contained only 3 of the songs from the album, and sadly, the meme song wasn't one of them. The album was limited to a very small run of only 120 copies, and they were only available from a physical store in France. These songs could be played on any normal record player, however, due to the softness of the chocolate, they would only play 3 to 5 times before becoming completely unplayable. But hey, at that point you got to eat it, so it wasn't all that bad. Now, let's talk about the state of these records today. With only 120 records being produced, and with them being made over 12 years ago now, and with the fact they're made out of chocolate, it's completely understandable that many would doubt if any of these records even still exist today. However, if we take a look at the sales history on the website Discogs, we can see that since this chocolate record's release, there has been exactly 1 sale. In 2023, a user named Picomax from France listed their copy for sale, with the following description: the record being in chocolate, it has melted with time inside the sleeve. Looks rather serious. I can't confirm exactly, as the record is still sealed. Still a unique piece to have in a collection. So while Picomax still had their copy 11 years after release, it did seem that the record had unfortunately melted quite significantly, resulting in a listing grade of poor. Despite this, however, Picomax did manage to sell their copy. Despite an original asking price of a whopping €200, they would eventually sell the record on the 4th of June 2023 for a much more reasonable €50. So, despite the odds, these records not only still exist today, but we even have proof of them exchanging hands at least once. Now, there's one more thing to say about this record. In 2022, the 10-year anniversary of the By Your Side album, the album would be re-released in another chocolate edition. However, this time, the record itself was not made of chocolate. It was just a plain old vinyl record. This time, the artwork of the album was completely recreated as a real slab of chocolate. Only 100 were made, and unlike the chocolate record, this version does not appear to have been sold on the secondary market yet. But hey, if they were able to do it with the chocolate records, it may only be a matter of time before one of these is listed for sale. And who knows, maybe you'll be the one to buy it. Anyway, let's move on to our final item. Item number 3. Mario Ice Cream. The Super Mario series is arguably the most influential video game series of all time. Despite the fact that the game, widely considered to be first in the series, Super Mario Bros., was released all the way back in 1985, the series has only increased in popularity as the years have gone by. A Super Mario series game has been released on every Nintendo console ever since, and over 430 million copies of games in the Super Mario series have sold, making it one of the best-selling video game series of all time. Being one of the largest video game franchises of all time, it should be no surprise that there's an absolute ton of Mario merchandise out there. Even aside from the countless Mario video games, for which many video game collectors make it their aim to collect them all, myself included, there's tons of other merchandise too. There's shirts, there's toys, there's cups, there's magnets, there's pencils, there's erasers, there's bling. All of this merchandise is highly collectible, and one only has to take a quick look at eBay to see that some of the prices that these items command demonstrates that there is a strong Mario collecting community out there. However, as you've probably figured out by now, the world of Mario collectibles doesn't stop at the inedible. Yes, there are lots and lots of Mario food items. There's Mario cookies, there's Mario noodles, there's even Mario cereals, from the Nintendo cereal system that was sold in the 80s to the Super Mario cereal that has the added bonus of having an amiibo built into the box. All of these food items were extremely mass-produced and are relatively easy to obtain. Taking the Mario cereal as an example, if I go on eBay right now, I can find countless people selling it, even though the cereal hasn't been produced for years. But while items such as cereals and vacuum-sealed noodles are relatively easy food items to store and trade, what about food items that don't store as well? What about perishable items that require constant refrigeration, or even worse, are required to be constantly frozen? Foods that will literally melt into oblivion outside the confines of a negative temperature. What about foods such as ice cream? Mario-themed ice creams have been released since all the way back in 1988. In that year, ice cream trucks would begin selling the Super Mario Bros. Bar, a cherry-flavoured ice cream in the shape of Mario's head, featuring a red bubblegum ball nose, a true classic of any ice cream. Shortly after, another variant of the Super Mario Bros. Bar would launch, this time featuring a green bubblegum nose. In 1994, we'd see a significantly different Mario ice cream launch. This release, which was in the UK only, was a Neapolitan-style ice cream. Almost a decade later, in 2003, this Mario Kart-themed ice cream, also with a coloured gumball, would be sold. And here, the Mario ice cream trail goes cold, pun entirely intended, until 2019, when Nintendo would partner with Cold Stone Ice Creamery to produce a series of ice creams to promote a variety of games, including Super Mario Maker 2, Mario Party Superstars, and also the 35th anniversary of Mario. In 2023, in Japan, Nintendo would also partner with Baskin-Robbins to produce ice creams that promoted the most recent main series Mario game, Super Mario Wonder. Now, as we mentioned earlier, the thing about ice creams is that they're very transient. Sure, Mario ice creams look very aesthetic, and if you saw one for sale at your local ice cream shop, you might be tempted to buy one. Hey, even take a couple of snaps for Instagram before digging in. But surely no one would be crazy enough, so much of a die-hard collector, to try and keep one of these things, right? Okay, you can probably see where this is going. You probably think some Japanese Mario fan went to Baskin-Robbins in 2023 and has kept one of these ice creams in their freezer for the past 2 years. Well, part of that is correct. Someone has kept a Mario ice cream in their freezer in an attempt to preserve it. But it wasn't in Japan, and it wasn't in 2023. It was in 2003. Remember this photo I showed you of an ice cream from 2003? Well, that's not a photo, it's a screen cap from a video. And that video was recorded in 2011. The video was uploaded by Justin Barubi, who runs the YouTube channel King Nintendo Fanboy. In the video, Justin explains the backstory of his Mario ice cream collection that he keeps in his freezer.
Now today's items are a little bit more obscure than the items I have been showing in my last videos, but at the same time, I don't know anybody else who has these items in their Nintendo collection. Some people may think this is a little disgusting, and I often find myself wondering why I still have them in my collection, but I just don't have the heart to get rid of them. But they're right here in this freezer. Mario ice cream bars.
I'd strongly recommend you go and watch Justin's video as it's only 3 minutes long, and I'll leave a link in the description. Now, the oldest ice cream in Justin's collection dates to 2001, so at the time of his video being uploaded, it was 10 years old. But the real question that remains is, does Justin still have these items today? Well, thankfully, Justin's Twitter/X account answers that for us. As recently as 2020, Justin has confirmed that he still has the ice creams in his freezer, meaning that he has held on to these ice creams for literally 2 decades. No matter how strange or bizarre you might find the idea, Justin's level of dedication to their preservation is honestly admirable, and you've really got to hand it to him for rolling with it for this long. Now, what I find quite wholesome is that Justin has become somewhat of a world-renowned expert in the niche of Mario ice creams. Justin writes for a Nintendo news site, Nintendo World Report, where he has posted in-depth and insightful reviews of all Mario-themed ice creams released since 2019. After all, who else would you trust to review Mario ice creams than the guy who has preserved them in his freezer for over 20 years? So Justin, if you're watching this, thank you for your preservation efforts, and I hope your ice creams stay nice and cold for many years to come. Anyway, I really hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the unusual world of edible collectibles. I really love making videos like this, and the best way you can support me to make more just like this is by liking this video and subscribing to my channel. It really helps. You can also find me on X, or you can drop by my Discord server and come and say hello. But most importantly, I just want to thank you for watching my video. This has been NB Duckman. Thank you so much for watching.